Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make books and courses for other potters who want to be more environmentally friendly in their pottery making. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I can't wait to get started. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Tomlinson, and this is exciting because today's episode is episode 9 of the 10-part series on making a mug on the potter's wheel, raw glazing it. And so in today's episode, we're going to be talking about like packing the kiln. So if you wanted to like see how I pack the kiln, there's a video version of this podcast episode which you can just watch on YouTube. And it's sort of, you can see like what I'm doing and stuff. But yeah, the kiln I'm using is an electric kiln, a 60-litre electric kiln with round kiln shelves. So I just talk you through, yeah, like how I'm doing it, all the different things I think about, and like the different items I'm putting in and things. And our mug is taking pride of place at the top of the kiln. So yeah, I'm really excited to share it with you. We're nearly there. We're nearly at the end of this process where we get to have a cup of tea in the mug. And that's what I've been waiting for. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and let's get on with the episode. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to be loading the kiln. And you might think this is like a really technical thing to do, but it's really not. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to load a kiln. So this is an electric kiln that I'm using, and it was the most energy efficient kiln that I could get at the time. And it's a 60-litre kiln that goes up to stoneware temperatures. So the first thing I'm doing is showing you that I've got some kiln props of different sizes and then some kiln shelves. And these kiln shelves have been, they're circular kiln shelves that are the perfect size for this kiln. And they have been painted with backwash. And backwash is a substance which protects kiln shelves from getting like bits of glaze like stuck on them and stuff. It just means that the glaze kind of comes off really easily when you yeah, if anything like runs onto the kiln, if any bits of glaze like run onto the kiln, it sort of protects your kiln shelves. So what I'm doing now is I've got 3 props that are the same size, and I've tried to get the size appropriate props for the things that I'm going to put on the bottom layer of the kiln. So these kiln props, they're probably about 5 centimeters high, maybe slightly more, like 7 centimeters high. And I'm just putting in the first layer now of some like little dishes. So these little dishes are probably about 3 centimeters high because I don't want to like overpack, because this is a stoneware firing, glaze firing. So I don't want to like overpack the kiln. I don't want to, put loads and loads of layers of stuff in, because it can mean that it kind of takes a lot of energy to like heat up. And there was one time when I overpacked a kiln, and it seemed to be really difficult for the temperature sensor in the kiln to kind of like get what the right temperature was. It just kept on heating and heating and heating. I was like, oh. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm kind of just like putting in, like, we're going to do a few different layers, a few different shelves, kiln shelves, but I don't want to like pack it so that like the kiln shelves are really really close to the top of the item. So I'm kind of leaving a good gap of at least maybe an inch and a half. So maybe like 4 centimeters above the item that I'm above the pot that I'm putting in, like to put the kiln shelf on. So yeah, just to kind of like let that heat kind of circulate all around the kiln. So what I've done there is I've put in some dishes, some round dishes, and then I've put in some little tiny little hearts, which I stamp the word Oxford in. I sell those in like a local shop to people who want like a little heart with Oxford on. And so what I did was I tessellated the little hearts like around the round dishes, because there was like a little space that I couldn't fit another round dish in. So I just like to put a little heart in. So that's essentially what you're doing each time. Each time you're doing a shelf, you're just trying to fit as much as you possibly can, like on the shelf in terms of the shapes, like fitting around each other. So I'm going to do the next shelf now, and this shelf is a little bit shorter. Like it's going to be like there's going to be a smaller space in between that shelf and then the next shelf because I'm just going to do some coasters. So they need like they don't need like too much space, but again, like I said before, like we want to make sure there is some space like above them. Um, so I've done a prop which is maybe about an inch and a half high. Yeah, about 3 centimeters high, 4 centimeters high. And I'm just getting as many coasters in there as I possibly can. And each time I put an item into the kiln, I am checking the base to see if it's completely free of glaze. Because although you might have like wiped the base of glaze, sometimes like little bits of glaze kind of like can get on. Maybe a bit is brushed off or something from something else, or maybe the surface you've put it down on has a little bit of glaze, like the shelf or something. So again, I'm using smaller items and tessellating them in between the other items and just trying to just fit as much as I possibly can on that shelf. But all the items are kind of a similar height. So that's a good thing to say, actually. Like they're all kind of like we want to kind of fit similar items of a similar height on each shelf. Okay, so we've got the second shelf going in there, and I'm just going to build the third shelf out. So this shelf is, so use three props every time for each shelf. And three props is absolutely fine in terms of like supporting the kiln shelf for a round kiln like this. Um, so the props that I sort of originally selected, they're a little bit tall for these next this next piece that I'm going to be putting in. So like another thing to say is that like in this kiln, there's going to be like a mixture of different pieces. Like some of them are smaller than others, some of them are bigger than others. And I'm going to save the very top shelf of the kiln for the largest pieces because I don't really want to have to build a really tall um loads and loads of props together to kind of like make, say like the bottom shelf, if I put really tall items in there, it'd be quite unstable. So I'm basically putting kind of short-ish items up until the top layer, and then I'm going to put our mug. Our mug is going to go on the very top shelf with another few things like a few little vases I've got to fire and some other little mugs and stuff. So okay, so um the original props I selected were too big. So what I did was I took some smaller kiln props and I've put them together. So there's these little kiln props you can get with a little kind of like a bump in them, and they kind of slot together really well. So I've used three of the ones that slot in, and then another kind of round prop, and then I've built the height that I want. So that's a good thing to think about, like in terms of like what like having a range is quite good, a range of different kiln prop sizes, because then it kind of allows you to accommodate like different sized pieces every time, and it means you're not wasting space. Like you don't have to have like a huge kiln prop. Say like you had a really big kiln prop, then you'd have a really big space like above your item kind of thing. So it's like a really good idea just to have like a range, and then if you've got some really short items, you can have a kind of a smaller space between each kiln shelf, and then it means you're not wasting sort of as much space in the kiln and stuff. Um, okay, so again, I've done some round dishes on that shelf, and then I've put some little Oxford hearts, which are smaller, fitted them in amongst the dishes. And with a glaze firing, like we don't want any of the things to be touching each other, and we also, like I said, we want the base to be completely free of glaze every time. Um, so that's something to consider. We want kind of, you want a good kind of maybe centimeter space around each item. You don't want to have them like really, really close to each other. So yeah, err on the side of a little tiny bit more space than like completely cramming them in. But at the same time, like when I pack a kiln, I'm sort of like trying to be mindful of like how much energy it's going to take. So my kiln usually takes about 40 2 to 40 to 42 kilowatt hours to fire. So it's a lot of electricity, and a lot of that electricity is used right at the top end of the temperature when it's heating to the very, very highest, like stoneware temperatures, which is like 1260 degrees Celsius. So, I don't want to be wasting space in that kiln because I really want to make it as efficient as possible. So I'm just getting a few cups in, and there's some like taller vases, and so I've had all these items, like I glazed them and then I've had them just drying in the sun outside. Just there's our mug. So our mug is going in now. So um, there, our mug is taking prime position in the top that top shelf of the kiln. And yeah, another thing to say is we don't want any of the things to be touching any of the elements. So just make sure nothing is too close to the elements. But essentially, that's it. That's the kiln packed. So yeah, what did we do? We did 4 shelves there, and then I just kind of flick the switch closed, and that's it. That's packing a kiln. Thank you so much for joining me on that episode. And if you want to find out more about eco-friendly pottery, head over to the Octoclay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. Can't wait to see you there.